Hey everyone, this is Jane from TDB here bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today I will be doing a comparison episode of the 2005 Nanqiao Double Lions, the 502 batch, versus the 2005 Dayi 7542502. So why this comparison? Well, these are both from kind of the Menghai area. 7542 has a reputation as being a very punchy, probably a very Boulong heavy blend, whereas the Double Lions is a Boulong tea. So this is 502. That's the famous batch of Double Lions, the one that Tea We Like sells and has been sold by a couple different vendors throughout the years. A lot of people have tried the Malaysian stored version. This one's actually mainland stored, I believe, from Guangzhou, somewhere like that. So it's going to be a little bit different inherently than the one that Tea We Like sells. Nonetheless, still kind of a reputation as being very Boulong heavy, strong, punchy tea. And if you remember, maybe half a year ago or so, I brought on the 502 7542 to compare batches, 502 versus 504, and just see kind of what the hype was. And I expected it to be a lot closer than it actually was. So the 502 really impressed me in terms of its strength. We are going to just be drinking some very strong tea here today. I blinded both of these, so I don't know which one is which. This could be interesting, too, because I actually don't know these teas super intimately. I've only had the 502, 7542 a couple of times. Nanqiao Double Line I've had a little bit more, but kind of throughout the years, I've never owned a cake of it. It should be really interesting just to see. I wonder how distinct these teas are going to present themselves as well. If it's going to be really obvious which one is which, or if I will have a much harder time guessing. So anyways, let's get on to this comparison. Alright, so here we go. I have poured out steep number 1 already. So here we have tea on my left. Fairly standard smell, kind of woody. Maybe a little bit of resin. A lot more barbecue smoke coming off of this tea on the right. A little bit darker color coming from the tea on the left, although take for that what you want. True in the cups as well. Cheers. Kind of tastes like what it smells like, woody, not very fruity, not super strong yet. Okay, hints at some retired smoke here. Okay, and let's go to this tea on the right. Cheers. So using 4 grams for 75 milliliters or so. I was going to use 5, but I did find that my Double Lion sample was a little bit scant, so ended up with 4 grams, so used 4 grams as well for the Dayi tea. Bigger, but also softer, if that makes sense. So kind of a bigger mouthfeel for this. Also sweeter, a little more barbecue smoke sweet. Yeah, I have my suspicions for which tea is which already, but I'm going to keep those to myself. We'll do another steep here. I'd say they're pretty different on this first steep. Kind of what you expect. I mean, it's a Dayi tea versus a tea that's not a Dayi. Dayi definitely does have kind of a somewhat recognizable house taste to it. And I do remember that it did take a couple steeps before that 7542 really built up some steam. So that first one was closer to a flash. I'm going to keep these steeps pretty short, but I want to go just a little bit harder. So maybe for 10 seconds, 15 seconds here. All right, there we go. Keeping this water nice and hot. Want to get as much extraction as we can. Let that hang out. So one thing to definitely do that I did here is I broke up the tea quite a bit before going into this session. Just want to make sure that you get kind of an even session. If you brew one big chunk, for instance, it's just much harder to brew, and you could very well easily end up with like kind of an even brews, especially on the first few, before it kind of fully kind of decompresses, especially for more compressed teas. Yeah, again, the barbecue wood smoke, kind of in a nice way, I'd say. Far more kind of less top notes here, far more grounded and just kind of woody notes. No fruit notes coming out of either of these teas quite yet. 7542, sometimes I do get some fruity notes out of it. Again, not a blend I drink very regularly. But these two teas are both 20 years old now, so I think they're entering a stage where I could drink either of them. Color is a little bit closer here, but yeah, let's go with this tea on the right. Definitely sharper. I can taste that bitterness. I'm going to let that cool down just a second. I think it's just a little bit easier to taste it once it's cooled down a bit. Let me know your experiences with these teas. The 2005 7542s in particular are a really confusing time because there's multiple batches, and usually the batches will be somewhat close in price. So for instance, in like 2006, 2007, my understanding is that the batches, like the first batch versus the second batch, pretty close in price. 2005, that's definitely not the case. There are two different 501 batches. One is very expensive and one is even more expensive. I think close to four figures, so like close to $1,000 a cake. And then 502 is also very expensive. It's something like $250, $260. And then you get down to the lower batches and the price goes down quite a bit. Like 504, I think it's just a little bit north of $100 or so, last I checked. I'm not sure about 503, but yeah, I mean, progressively they do get weaker. So, do get quite a bit less expensive. So I thought, kind of my initial preference for that video I did about half a year ago was to test to see if the batches were worth it. And I did find that there was quite a significant difference between 502 and 504. Granted, I'm not even testing the 501 ones, which I've heard are real kind of mouth burners. So, interesting. Interesting thing to note, certainly about the 2005 productions, which was kind of one of those transitory years for Dayi. People talk about pre-reform Dayi, which is before 2004. And those ones can be definitely quite pricey as well. But these 2005s can be interesting teas and quite strong. Anyways, let's start here. Tea on the right. A little sour, barbecuey, a little bitterness, but not terribly strong. Okay, here, tea on the left. Wood, resin. This is far more of a balanced tea, I'd say. Yeah, I like this on the left. It's not too bitter, but there's definitely some bitterness there. And it's strong tea. I would say the tea on the right, in comparison, has a little bit of a thicker body, but it's perhaps a little more... I'm not going to say the tea is hollow, because it's not, but in comparison to this has a lot of density to it, this tea on the left. I would say the tea on the right is comparatively a little hollower. Even if it's not a hollow tea, in comparison, it is hollower. Okay. Pouring out these. Let's go on to another steep number 3. Very interesting. I would say I am actually preferring this tea on the left, which I suspect is the Dayi tea right now, which honestly, I don't know what my expectations were as far as preference goes. I do wonder a little bit if I would prefer kind of the Malaysia stored double lions. Unfortunately, this has been stored in the sample baggie for a little bit, so that could be responsible for some of the sourness that I am experiencing here. Okay, so let's go start with this. Again, let's let these teas go for about 15 seconds or so. Nice and strong in that last one. We also took our time between steep 2 and 3, so, that's going to impact the brew as well. They're both pretty much kind of decompressed at this point, pretty good. Okay, nice red color there. Yeah, very full mouthfeel for that dye. It's nice. Or, well, for the tea on the left, I should say. I don't know for sure if it's the dye or not. I could definitely make myself look kind of stupid at the end of this. Again, they are not teas that I know that well because I don't drink them very regularly. Last time I had this dye was actually on that episode. So it's one of those samples that I'm holding on to because it's an interesting kind of comparison point. I would certainly buy a cake of 502 mostly as a reference. But it's not one that's necessarily easy to find, or I haven't necessarily sought it out, but it just has not, popped up in a very convenient way. If you were to criticize this tea on the left, perhaps it does come across as a bit more ordinary, in the sense that there is quite a lot of tea that has a similar profile to it. I think the difference between this and those other teas is it does have like a nice strength and kind of just like this protracted mouthfeel that sort of extends. It's very full in its presentation. Okay, so we started with, okay, we will stick with this. Cheers. Not very sweet, also not overwhelmingly bitter, but dense and resin-fueled and packed. Yeah, we're going to watch how this pays attention to how this interacts in the mouth. I mean, these are both believably long, heavy blends in the sense that they both are strong, and then hopefully they come with kind of that nice, sweet aftertaste. I will say that these side-by-sides are interesting, especially for comparing kind of the initial taste, but things like aftertaste can get a little bit muddled. My throat is starting to feel kind of that coating of that sweetness there, so that is definitely nice. Yeah, nice aftertaste, kind of just very, very classic. Cheers. It is thicker. There's a little bit less resin, but there is still some resin there. It does feel a little less blended. Definitely pretty smoky. And yeah, it would have been interesting to rewatch that episode. I do wonder if the 502 was smoky at some point too. That would definitely confuse me if it was, because I do associate the double lions with some smokiness, something I've realized over the course of filming this episode. This is an episode I've wanted to do for a while, but these are two strong teas, so I kind of put it off as a result. But they are two, I think, pretty enjoyable teas as well. Yeah, I am feeling the tea for sure. Okay, start with this. Let's go even longer. Let's go, 20 seconds or so. Definitely pretty distinct teas here. Curious how people have found the double lions, how people like that. I find some people find it's a very dramatically overrated cake for whatever it costs, and other people find it to be, appropriately priced. It's a very strong tea. It's interesting also to see kind of in somewhat off-brand tea get a high price tag like that. It's like the tea that you're not going to necessarily run into very cheap. At least I never have, because if I ran into a $70 2005 502 double lines, I'd buy a ton of it, no problem. But the fact is that it is a couple $100 at least, usually when you find it. Okay, let's brew that out. So yeah, we definitely let that hang out for a little bit. Not timing the steeps, but hopefully going about the same amount of time for both of them. And if anyone has tried the 502-7542, I'd also be very curious to hear. Not one that gets circulated often at all, and also it's Dayi, so it's a pain in the butt to verify and make sure you're getting the real thing, because there's so much fake Dayi out there. So that is perhaps another reason to gravitate towards Nanqiao double lions. Probably, I'd imagine there's some fakes out there, but maybe not to the scale or the level of Dayi fakes, which is probably the most faked brand. Smell. It does feel like it's fading a little bit in terms of aromatic intensity. Still has that barbecue smoke. Very persistent aroma here. So this is steep number 4. So we will start over here on the right. Cheers. So I was about to say the sourness has gone away, but no, it's still there. Nice, thick. It definitely is not very sweet on that initial taste. You kind of have to kind of power through those things. So this is definitely a tea that people would enjoy that like strong tea. In fact, both of these teas are. And I would say it's kind of depending on what you consider strength would determine which one is stronger, actually. This one definitely has more characteristics, a very clear profile that to me hints at being a bit less blended, which is why I would guess it's the double lion. Not that the double lion isn't a blend, it probably is, but it's probably a blend that incorporates less variation across the material. Yeah, strong mouthfeel. I mean, I feel like it's a pretty easy profile to understand. And here we go. In comparison, you have a lot more of kind of a range happening on this tea on the left. There's definitely like a fair amount of just middle density packed notes here. But in terms of like the kind of core sourness and bitterness, this tea on the right has more of it. Okay, yep, as expected, this is B, so this is the Dayi. And over here we got A, which is the double lion. So, honestly, I would say I actually prefer the Dayi in this case. Not necessarily my expected conclusion here. I think they both definitely bring something to the table. But yeah, this Dayi has definitely impressed me in the couple of tastings I've done, in the sense that it did really well versus the 504. And I think it's holding up pretty well against the double lions as well. But I do see this one as a little bit more apples and oranges as opposed to the Dayi tasting, where it was clear that one tea was just, they were going for similar profiles, but one tea was better than the other. Okay, so I think that just about wraps up this in-between-sode. I am starting to sweat here, as you might expect from drinking these very strong teas. So thank you all for tuning in. Let me know how you liked it, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.